Hi, my name is Dr. Teddy Potter, and I'm the Executive Director of MEDICC. And I would like to welcome you to the MEDICC webinar series. This is our first webinar series, and you'll see why we're starting with this topic first. But we're happy that you're here, and we hope that you will join us as we explore the topic of illiteracy. A little bit about MEDICC if you're not familiar. MEDICC stands for the Medical Education Cooperative with Cuba. It's a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization that was founded in 1997. The vision of MEDICC is that health is absolutely possible for everyone. The mission of MEDICC is to promote U.S.-Cuba health collaboration and highlight Cuba's public health approaches to inform the quest for health equity and universal health worldwide. Two of our signature programs include the MEDICC's Gateways program, which is a travel program to Cuba to learn more about from health experts and witness their population and prevention-based system in action. The second initiative is Light for Life, and that's where we install solar panels on maternity homes to provide reliable energy for women with high-risk pregnancies. This webinar series is designed for a specific reason. Cuba's Solidarity public health system is globally recognized for its effectiveness in preserving and protecting health at a fraction of the cost of downstream interventions. The Cuban health model might offer a transformative paradigm that the global community needs to preserve the planet for future generations. We want to extend a special thanks to our sponsors that make these webinars possible. So why reading? Why are we starting with reading? Humans are disrupting the Earth's natural systems, and this is impacting human health and all life on the planet. Planetary health involves finding solutions to the upstream causes of these disruptions. Cuba's prevention-oriented health system excels at analyzing and addressing the social and environmental determinants of health. Today, we'll be discussing one of the earliest examples of Cuba's upstream thinking. We will be learning about the literacy campaign. Now, you might be wondering what literacy has to do with the health of Americans. Let me share these statistics with you that make the connection. According to the World Literacy Foundation, over 70% of inmates in American prisons cannot read above a fourth grade level. An article published by the American Family Physician Journal reported up to 40% of American adults have fair to poor literacy skills. I'm going to say that again because it's hard to believe. Up to 40% of Americans adults have only fair to poor literacy skills. And studies have shown that patients with inadequate literacy have less health-related knowledge, receive less preventive care, have poorer control of chronic illnesses, and are hospitalized more frequently than other patients. So today I am honored to present to you that we have a very special speaker to talk to us about the importance of literacy. Today's speaker is Dr. Manuel Raices. Dr. Raices is a Cuban biotechnologist with a doctorate in molecular biology and over 41 years of experience in the sector. In the last 15 years, he's been working mainly in implementing health programs in all of the Cuban provinces, training medical staff in the use of novel biotech products developed by the Cuban biotech sector. Dr. Reese, it's so wonderful to welcome you to this very first webinar, and thank you for your willingness to kick us off.
Okay, thank you very much. It is an honor for me to participate in this webinar and to contribute a little bit in sharing an experience that changed the future of Cuba and the past of Cuba in many aspects because involve many people in giving solution within 1 year of something that we were just having for centuries, that it was the prevalence of illiteracy in the whole Cuba. So I want to believe that this was the biggest action in the Cuban history that have conducted to become Cuba today a country with free education and also free health system and a design to have a strong social security, even if in the economical situation we're facing now, a lot of dreams have been affected and delayed for the future. So I will focus on talking about the literacy campaign in this epic battle that changed Cuba. Why it was important to have the literacy campaign? Because before revolution, when you look at Cuba, that it was a developing country that have a very big difference between countryside and cities, and you can characterize regarding the division of the society in two type of Cubans: the one who has access and the one who have also no access of anything. People who has on the top level of the Cuban society have the possibility to send all the children to sophisticated school, either in Cuba or outside Cuba. All those schools, most of them, they were private, from the private sector, and they have everything. They have everything to have good education and so on. But in the other hand, the children from the countryside, on children that has parents that they do mm, manual work, they have no access to education. So it creates a bit different between Cuban who has access to money and Cuban who has access to education and Cuban who do not access to money, and as a consequence they could not educate children as well. This is a photo that show during the literacy campaign how we solved the problem. And the problem was solved just by inviting all Cubans from 13 years old to 70, 75 years old who know how to write, how to read, to join families that there were people who didn't know how to write and how to read. So you see in this photo almost 8 childs, but the child who is in the middle is the teacher. And this 13 years old teacher make a big change in this family just by teaching everybody how to write and how to read. Talking about data, how was the literacy level in Cuba in 1953 according to this census? So we have 15 provinces now, but at that moment there were just 6 provinces, and Cuba has about 4.3 million people. 1 million of them didn't know how to write and how to read. So it points for the 23%, 23.5% of the Cuban population didn't know how to write. There is a challenge as well, and there is an humiliating situation. Even those people who didn't know how to write, they have to sign legal document. So it was extremely depressing to see in so many legal documents that they have to sign with the cross because they didn't know nothing that it was written. They didn't know how to put even the name. So the one of the goals of the Cuban Revolution was, if they triumph, was to change finally this situation and give the chance to people who made their own decision because they could have access to education. The problem started with the triumph of the revolution. So suddenly you realize that you have a new army, you have a new people ruling the country, and 1/3 of those people, they didn't know how to write. So how you could put people to occupy high responsibilities if they have no education? So even for the people who wanted to change Cuba, you have to start educating them before they try to educate the other people to put the education level in Cuba at a high level. The challenge was that in countryside, it was not 23%. 23% of literacy was in the whole Cuba, but in the countryside, that it was the majority of the Cuban people living where in the countryside, it was 41%. And just in urban cities, the illiteracy was about 11%, but in countryside it was a a big challenge to change and to overcome that you half of the population, about half of the population, they didn't know how to make decision because they didn't know how to write and how to read. So the 1960, it was a strategic year because you have to figure out how to solve the problem. And solving the problem, it was a challenge because suddenly you have in the whole country about 30,000 teacher and you have about 1 million people who didn't know how to write. So you cannot create class for all those people because they are spread in the whole country. So the solution was to think in some way outside the box. So you have to be creative. You cannot go to the classical that, okay, we need to contract teacher, we need to have qualified teacher to educate, but the challenge was to invite as many people as possible to join the literacy campaign and also to create an organizational structure that help you to educate everybody following the same rules. So it involved also to design booklets that didn't exist previously and also to train all the new teachers in how to use the booklets to optimize the role they have to conduct. The campaign, in fact, begins in 1961. So from April until December, so from January to April, let's say that it was possible to make 268,000 Cubans fall in love in contributing to become teacher. So suddenly you have 268,000 people willing to go to the countryside. So they try to put all of them together to train and to qualify them to be able to be spread on the whole cities. And it was a good rational philosophy at that moment because the point was that you're going to be in the farmer house that they have to work very hard to make the living. So forget about to start giving lesson in the morning. Probably you have to join them to work on the field and at night. And when I say at night, it has to be very early at night because all the farmers go to bed extremely early because probably at 4 o'clock they have to wake up again to do the milking and so on. So it was a process that at the same time you teach, you learn, and you learn how Cuban people live the real life. So this interaction generate a profound moment of political and moral transformation in our country, in the whole society. In this picture you see, those are, I would say, the standard teacher that they went to the countryside. All of them, I mean, even females and boys, they have like an equipment that was formed by two books, sock, beret, pant, two chair, and extremely important, a Coleman type lantern because the education have to be at night most of the time. So this is I mean the uniform or the condition that all the teacher receive for going to occupy the position on the Cuban territory. This data is important. 178,000 literacy teacher join. Then you have 30,000 other worker that most of them they were already a professional teacher who went to do the teaching, even received the salaries for doing the teaching. And then there were another 100,000 Conrado Benitez Brigade member formed mainly by a student that joined also. So I am talking about 300,000 people that within a year, they were joined for going to the countryside to try to educate about 900,000 people living on the countryside. This is how it looks. The process of educating the member of the Cuban Revolutionary Army at the beginning. This is an historical photo. And this is the literacy teaching method. The first things was to focus on conversation, but conversation trying to develop analysis. So why things happen? Because every time that happens something, it have to probably it's a consequence of something that it was giving signal you before. So trying to have conversation where the people were encouraged to think, was extremely crucial element on the literacy campaign. The second point was practicing reading. And at the beginning and during the first class, it was the teacher who lead the reading. Then it was a second step where the teacher and the pupil together they do the reading, and at the end, in the third state, it was the pupil alone who conduct the reading. And when such a thing happened, it means that you were like in the bicycle downhill. From that moment, it was things extremely easy. Then practice and exercise. You have to conduct the understanding all the Spanish alphabet, how to select phrase or sentences, how to combine, how to divide sentences on syllable, and also how to write sentences with the rational, to be able to explain yourself not only with your mouth but also with your hand and during the reading. This was the three basic elements that it was based the educational strategy for teaching people in the 60s in Cuba. Then, because most of the people have to work, the teaching was at night and have to be fun and have to be dynamic and have to be early because most of the farmers at 8 o'clock or 8:30 or 9 o'clock they have to be in bed because early in the morning I mean they have to be working again. So the instruction for the teacher was you join the people to work and at night you concentrate the people to do the class that have to be sacred. It's not that I'm tired today, I don't want to participate. No, this is not an excuse. The most important thing is to face the duty that you are there because the interest is that you finally learn, not to com to accomplish I would say an instruction. So the objective was really to land it the possibility to transform this illiteracy person in an educated person. The result came up on December 22, 1961. The level of illiteracy in Cuba changed within 1 year from 23% to 3%. About 707,000 Cubans were or have been taught to read and write, and some of them or many of them sent personal letters written by them to the main leader in Cuba at that moment, Fidel, saying that we are so happy, we are so proud. Now we could read, we understand what it is written, and we can make decisions by ourselves. So it was an historical moment, December 22, 1961, and from that day until now, each December 22nd in Cuba is celebrated as the Education Day. Still, it is celebrated, and all the students and all the families congratulate teachers and so on. And this is a very beautiful day in Cuba. It is a tradition that started in 1961. Some of the photos of this historical moment. So what you see here are the students who months ago were on the countryside, and all of them went to the Revolution Plus to say that the task was accomplished, and they are willing to do something else. And something else have a lot of meaning when we talk about education, because it was not, I would say, like a moral compromise to do the duty to teach people to write, but it was the possibility to create the roof or the basement for building a high high building, that it was the building of education, illustrate society. Sorry if I do not found the right words. So when they asked what else we can do, the answer was very clear: study, nothing else. Next. This is how it works now. So all the education we have in Cuba now is a consequence of this movement, and probably this structure of the Cuban educational system looks very much of the high developed country, as United States or Sweden, for example, but it is very pragmatic. So you have like a kindergarten from 1 to 5 years, then you have a primary school from 6 to 11 years. Then you have the basic secondary school from 12 to 7 years, and this is from 7 to 9 grade. And then you have the pre-university from 15 to 70 years, from 10 to 12th grade, and then you have the university from 18, and most of the Cuban students finish university when they are 22 years old. So this is the algorithms. In fact, you have also like a branch, you have the special education children. So we have a school here for children that have different disabilities like hearing, blindness, mental, and so on. Then you have the vocational school for high talented students, and you have the Polytechnic Institute where students that they are not interested in becoming a scientist or study basic science, they can go to the technical work and get a position without going to university. Then you have a third branch that is still it is used that for workers that want to improve the educational level, they can ask permission on the work to study at home. So they receive the material at home, they study, and they present themselves for tests. And if they manage to pass, they go and go and go. And in this moment, I have many friends who enter in my institute, for example, with a secondary educational level, and today they have or engineer degree or chemistry engineer or chemistry degree or basic science degree, because they have facilities to study at night, not going to class and so on. But if you focus this as a goal, you accomplish the goal. So there is another alternative channel to improve the education in Cuba. What are the result? The result is that the literacy campaign probably transformed Cuba in like an Oregon plant. So if given leaps the whole year, because you have a special school where students who have talent for art, it means dance, music, or painting and so on. I mean, they can go and they receive a high education and specialized education on this particular art. So when they become teenagers and they are 17, 15 years, they are really good because they have been playing the instrument or they have been dancing since they were a kid. The amazing thing is that all those schools are for free. And when those students become professional, they have not the whole Cuba, but I would say that the whole planet to prove themselves. And when they decided to leave, for example, nothing happened because there is always someone coming behind for occupying the position, because education is the possibility to have like a spring giving water the whole year. So the education in Cuba has been crucial in having high educational level, in having high artists level in the whole sector of the arts career, and having Cubans in the whole planet. And still in Cuba there is extremely powerful movement of art because there are school everywhere. There are school in almost every province, art school. The same thing in sport. For many years, Cuba occupied a top position in sport competition on the continent. So for many years, just after United States, Cuba was the second in getting medals on the Pan American Games, when the economical situation start damaging the Cuban economy, of course, the result uh, were lower, but for almost 60 years, Cuba became a superpower in sport because the sport school. So children are identified since they are extremely small to have a special talent for any sport. They go into a particular school, they receive special training. So when they are really teenagers, they could participate in international competition and they can win a lot of medals. But forgetting about the medals, probably the Cuban countries, one of the countries in Latin America where the people are more healthy, where you see less obesity, because there is on the brain of the Cuban to practice a sport every time they have a free time. And Talent School, it was another channel. So students who were really brilliant in chemistry, physics, and mathematics, they have the chance to go to a special vocational school where they receive extra education on these three main signature, chemistry, physics, and mathematics, because probably those people could be the, the future of the Cuban scientists as it happened in the reality so far now. This is Cuba in 2026. I am very sorry to show this slide because, I mean, we are a small fish. We are extremely small fish, and doesn't matter if this fish know karate, know how to protect, know how to hide. It's not easy every time you go out to the coral reef to know that there is a shark trying to eat you. So I personally, I mean, I am 67 years old. I've been alive, but I am extremely concerned about the future of my country because even if you try to defend yourself, you try to call other small fish to show solidarity, it's not easy. It's not easy to face a terrible shark. It's not easy. So I hope that the future of Cuba in this international ocean will be having friendship even with shark in the friendship and showing that even if you are small, you can benefit if you identify common synergy. And science is a wonderful bridge to establish synergy. We can benefit a lot, both countries, from science. We can benefit also from health because the universal health system in Cuba facilitate that you can go to pure communities and solve problems that probably exist today in poor communities in the United States. So there are so many things that we could do together. But believe me, if a big shark eats a small fish, still it's hungry because we are not meat enough. But if we could benefit from each other, it will be good for the shark and it will be good for the small fish as well. Thank you very much.